in person and on a video conference. Notice of this meeting has been posted online and at the Fort Bend ISD Administration Building for at least 72 hours. Our first item on the agenda is audience items. We have 8 speakers this evening. Our first speaker, I believe, is virtual. Ms. Angie Wierzbicki. You will have 3 minutes.
President Rosenthal?
Yes.
Would you like me to read the opening
Oh, yes, I'm
statement?
sorry about that. Sorry, I got ahead of you.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
May I please have everyone's attention? Before the board meeting begins, we ask that everyone please silence your cell phones. The Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustees meeting is an open meeting for the public to observe the board conducting district business. Therefore, patrons may only address the board during the designated audience items section on the agenda. If you have printed materials you want to give to board members, you must provide them to me or another police officer, and I will provide them to the board. We also ask members of the audience be respectful of others by maintaining 3 feet of distance between each other and remaining quiet so that everyone is able to hear the proceedings. Face masks are optional. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. The board encourages and welcomes comment and input from our patrons. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and please refrain from mentioning a student or employee's name when voicing a concern or complaint, as board policy provides alternate procedures through the grievance process policies GF local or DGBA local to seek resolution to complaints. The Superintendent's Office, Human Resources, and the administration in general can assist you in finding those procedures online. The following procedures will apply to tonight's audience items. I will read the name of the person registered to speak and share that they have 3 minutes to make their comments. Once the speaker starts their comments, the board secretary, Dr. Shirley Rose Gilliam, will announce when they have 30 seconds remaining. Once the 3-minute time limit has expired and whether the speaker has concluded their comments, Dr. Gilliam will announce that the speaker's time has elapsed. I then ask that you return to your seat so that the next speaker may have their 3 minutes to address the board. If addressing the board virtually, you will be removed from the meeting immediately following the expiration of your allotted 3 minutes. So let me get back to this. Our first speaker this evening is Angie Wierzbicki. She is virtual.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person tonight. Have to pick my kids up from summer camp soon. I am Angie Wierzbicki. I'm the mother of an incoming first and grader at Quail Valley Elementary. This is in response to the student dress code, a part of the student code of conduct. I'm not sure how many people have signed up to speak today, but please know that many of us represent thousands of parents in Fort Bend County who want to see mask mandates in schools. Look, I know you all have a hard job. We know your hands are tied as a school district because of the governor's executive order. We ask you to speak up to the governor and TEA to allow an exception for schools to institute and enforce mask mandates. We're seeing a sharp rise in COVID cases and in cases among kids, which wasn't the case last year. Hospitals and ICUs are already at capacity, including pediatric units. We know masks work to prevent the spread of viruses, and they work best when everyone is wearing them. My mask protects you, your mask protects me. Those who say masks should be a choice in schools right now aren't really giving many families a choice to an education in a safe atmosphere in our public school district, like working in middle-class families, for instance. Most of these families, of which the district has many, have 2 working parents and jobs that they can't do from home virtual schooling as a safe option, as if that was even on the table right now. And most of these families can't afford a private school that may make masks mandatory. My family is one of these families. We don't have a viable choice. My kids must attend public school face-to-face. And frankly, I want my kids to attend our local public school, but I want them to be safe and remain healthy. I implore you once again to initiate universal masking in the district. But until that can happen, you can do more. You can strongly encourage parents in your district and school emails to have their children wear masks. This isn't happening right now. I feel like this is sort of the bare minimum from our award-winning school district, and this isn't happening. Maybe you can incentivize the teachers in some way to stay masked up. I don't know, this is your wheelhouse. You guys can think outside of the box. You're smart, competent people who are very connected in the community. I trust you. I want to trust you to come up with some solutions to keep our kids safe and healthy. So again, I urge you, however, to appeal to Governor Abbott. And if your appeals fall on deaf ears, as I imagine they might, just do it. Initiate universal masking in the district. Do the right thing. I would hate to wake up one morning and hear one of our Fort Bend ISD
30
family members,
seconds.
a child or a teacher, has died from a disease that is now practically preventable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wiersbicki. Our next speaker this evening is also virtual, Bharati Sadhwani.
Hi, my name is Bharati Sadhwani, and I want to echo what Angie just said. We would like to see mask mandates in our schools because of the current situation in Fort Bend County. 10 to 20% of the kids who are currently testing positive are needing hospitalization. In our hospitals right now, pediatric and otherwise, ICUs are filling up, and this is from RSV and other viruses as well as COVID. 16% of the positive cases that we're seeing right now in Fort Bend County are kids under the age of 11 who don't have vaccines. I am a parent of a first grader. She is under that age of 12. She has no vaccine available to her. Without a mask mandate and without a vaccine, we're putting our kids in full capacity classrooms and exposing them to a lot of risk, especially because Delta is twice as contagious as the Alpha, and it is much more harmful to kids than we've seen with the original COVID Alpha variant. So I just want to really, really appeal to you, say, please stand up for us, stand up to the governor, stand up to T, show them our petition. We have 11,000 parents who have signed it, who want to mask mandates in schools right now. We're experiencing sort of like a state of the emergency here. I mean, Delta rates are sky high, hospitals are filling up, there's a nurse shortage. We really need you to be proactive rather than reactive. What is going to happen when there's an outbreak in 1 or 2 weeks after school starts? What is your plan? There is no backup virtual option. The only way to prevent outbreaks is by masking. We know it works. Scientific data shows that it works. We did it last year. So in addition to the social distancing, which is going to be really hard in full capacity classrooms, we really need everyone to wear their masks. If this means you need to pay a fine and go against the governor's executive order, that fine is $1,000. It is totally worth it. If this means you need to delay the start of school, and we have an idea for you, if you need to survey parents and say, hey, are you going to be voluntarily asking your kids to mask up for the whole day? And many of us are. You know, we would like our kids to be in classrooms with other students who are also masking and with staff who is also masking. So we can do a survey and we can ask everyone, do you plan to mask up for the full day outside of recess, outside of lunch, of course, you know, and if you do, let's plan those classrooms to be grouped together for children and staff who want to be around other people that are masking and following both CDC and AAP guidelines. For those who want
30
the right not
seconds.
to mask, that is fine. Let them have their own classrooms and take that risk, but it is not fair to parents like me who want our children to be safe. So please, please recommend this and please plan this.
Thank you, ma'am, for coming tonight. Our next speaker is Sujata Bajaj. I'm sorry if I'm butchering names.
Hi, can I be heard? Yep. Okay, great. My name is Sujata Bajaj. I go by Sue Bajaj. I'm a parent here at Fort Bend County. I have 3 kids in school, Cornerstone and Sartarsha. Let me start by saying that we know Fort Bend County is an award-winning district, and that's the reason many parents are settled here. We specifically picked this district to live in for that reason. What we are finding is that without the mask mandate, we are putting our kids in harm's way. We know it's a known danger. We know we're going to go into school. We know our kids are going to get sick, and we know our kids are going to be quarantined. So let me tell you a story about a school that has already started July 20th in Lamar County, Mississippi. They've started school, 10,000 kids. 2 weeks into school, 1,000 kids out of school. That's 10% of the school population cannot attend school because they either have COVID, have tested positive, or have to be quarantined because they've been around other children who've tested positive. When you extrapolate that to Fort Bend County, which is 77,000 children, and we look at a 10% population that has to now be taken out of school, and in Mississippi, they're going to a virtual option for a couple of weeks, and then they're going to figure it out. We're looking at almost 8,000 children that will be out of school that will be missing learning, missing the opportunity to engage with their friends and students and have school. That's the purpose. That's why we're here. And this cycle will continue. So we'll continue to see COVID positivity, we'll continue to see quarantine need, and this will continue throughout the school year. The simple answer is mask mandate. Mandate masking, pay the fine to the governor, it's $1,000. You have the full support of many, many, many parents in this county. We are looking forward to not being Lamar, Mississippi. We're looking forward to being who we are, which is Fort Bend County, an award-winning county. That's why we're here. We know you folks will make the right decision and the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baja. Our next speaker is Sonia Rash.
Hello, my name is Sonia Rash, and I'm speaking today as a mother of 2 children in Fort Bend ISD and a concerned parent for all of our children. To me, this is not about politics or pointing fingers. It is about protecting all of our families from an epidemic that knows no boundaries. The fact is, the Delta variant is spreading rapidly. The Delta virus is different from COVID. Last year, COVID patients were mostly the elderly and people with underlying conditions. Now, hospitals are being filled with our young people who are otherwise healthy and unvaccinated. The Delta variant is more transmissible and it can cause serious sickness in our children. The CDC now recommends that all students, teachers, and visitors wear masks in schools and that vaccinated people start masking up. Only today I heard on the news that over this past weekend, we had over 71,000 kids test positive for the Delta virus in the United States. 1/3 of all U.S. COVID cases reported in the past week are in 2 states, Florida and Texas. Hospitals are once again filling up with patients as the virus tears through the unvaccinated population. We know that one person can spread the virus to hundreds, if not thousands of people. Why take that preventable risk? We have kids entering kindergarten who do not understand the importance of masking up. How do we protect these kindergartners and their families and friends of either getting the virus or spreading the virus? How do we protect our teachers? I'm here today asking for a solution that protects our kids, teachers, staff, and our public. We're here today asking you to hear our concerns and our voices and do something about it. Whether that something is a better system online learning or requesting the governor for an exemption or special dispensation from being punished, or even sending emails on a regular basis to parents that say Fort Bend ISD highly recommends our children to wear masks. Do something. Because if we don't do something,
30 seconds.
then we are doing nothing. I'm going to leave you with one question. What is the harm in trying to protect our children, our teachers, our staff, our friends, and our families? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rash, for speaking this evening. Our next speaker is Huma Hossein.
Hello, my name is Huma Hussein, and I'm a parent of 2 elementary kids in Fort Bend ISD, as well as a Montessori owner here in Fort Bend. I am strongly opposed to the current FBISD dress code voluntary mask policy. Last July, 2 of my 3 children tested positive for COVID. My son, who is now 9 years old, has ADHD and anxiety, and the ordeal he has been through from COVID long-haul symptoms is heartbreaking. During COVID, my son was extremely anxious due to having to isolate in his room away from us and my infant daughter. He had unbearable headaches, GI issues, fatigue, sleeplessness, and muscle aches. To this day, he has nausea, stomach pain, reflux, and insomnia from COVID. He is 9. I'm not sure to what extent the cognitive effect COVID has had on him, but I've seen firsthand that it has exacerbated his ADHD and anxiety. He is still unable to sleep most nights post-COVID without medication. However, even with this exacerbation, he has no issue masking for long periods of time and understands the importance of staying safe. With school returning to 100% in person next week, he is worried, as am I, that he will contract COVID again since masking is not required. No parent wants to have their child helpless and sick, especially when the solution is as simple as putting on a mask to protect each other. We need to look out for each other as a community. For example, as a Montessori and child care director, I have implemented a strict masking policy for all people over the age of 2 for the last 18 months. Children are in care for 9 to 10 hours per day and have no issue masking. Due to this, we have until now been able to avoid any major outbreaks. Masking works. We are all aware that Governor Abbott has banned any masking mandate. However, I am here requesting the board to work with viable solutions to keep our kids safe and their education uninterrupted. Option 1, cohort classes based off of parents who would like their kids to mask. Let those kids eat lunch in their class cohort or outside on the playground. Option 2, consider IEPs for students who need accommodations based on masking. The district offers this for other medical diagnoses and for SPED students. Why not for masking? If my son had been in person last year and had to have missed school due to COVID exposure, there is no way he would have been able to catch up even though he had an amazing teacher. Missing 1 day of school for an ADHD child is the same as missing 1 week. Strongly appeal to the governor and TEA to allow each school or district to create their own masking policies based on what their constituents want. If enough pressure is applied, they will do what is necessary to save our kids. Thank you for your time and consideration today.
Thank you, ma'am, for speaking tonight. Our next speaker is Dr. Zara Syed.
Good evening, esteemed Board of Trustees and Superintendent. I am Dr. Zara Syed. You may remember me from a previous Board of Trustee meeting. I'm a board-certified family physician for 15 years in this area, as well as a parent of 3 children in the Fort Bend ISD school system. I am speaking on behalf of hundreds of our community physicians who are unable to be here in person because we are overwhelmed with COVID. Again, we are unanimously opposed to the optional mask mandates that are currently in place. Since my address to the Board of Trustees in May, we are back to being crushed by COVID, and the worst is yet to come. Cases are doubling every week, and we are officially in a 4th surge. 84% of county cases are due to Delta. Pediatric hospitals are full with respiratory illnesses due to a surge upon surge situation due to RSV and COVID. 10% of children testing positive for COVID are requiring hospitalization, and 1/3 of these are requiring critical care. COVID admission in children are pouring into the hospital more and more each day. The admissions are up 500%. We are seeing more COVID pneumonias in newborns and young school-age children requiring respiratory support this time around, which was unusual in the previous surges. These numbers are striking because kids are not meant to have severe illness or death. My colleagues and I are overwhelmed and scared. Several colleagues have told me on separate occasions, I feel a sense of impending doom on what is to come. One said, I feel like we are sending our children into a battlefield. Many physicians just cannot take the risk and are simply withdrawing their kids to do homeschooling. There is some trouble going on when your community physicians are expressing these feelings of distress and dread. We are in a collective partnership to protect our children. This partnership is falling apart and we are tired. We have been fighting this battle since last March. While I understand that the district is not allowed to mandate masks, there are some options to consider, as many have said before. Appeal to the state as a district asking for schools to be an exception to the mandate, and there are exceptions for nursing homes and prisons. Offer classes or cohorts for students that do choose to mask with a mask/vaccinated teacher. If this is an issue of choice, let these students and teachers be cohorted together because otherwise they do not have the choice of getting inadvertently infected by another unmasked person. Encourage masks for everyone. This is very different than allowing students to wear a mask if they choose. District-wide communication, signage recommending masking can give a very powerful message to help increase voluntary compliance.
30 seconds.
In conclusion, lastly, where are the options for accommodating high-risk children? With no virtual options, these children are being intermingled with unmasked and unvaccinated children, putting them at risk for potential death and complications for COVID. These children are entitled to a safe environment where a masked classroom may be a part of their accommodations. I implore you to keep our children safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Syed, for speaking this evening. Our next speaker is Sam Rubico.
Thank you. I'm going to change it up just a little bit from the other speakers. We have kids that get sick every year that come to school. 3 out of 30 will come to school and get sick in the first week or two. So the Mississippi case is not any different. Doctors, number 2, doctors are not, physicians are not scientists. That's number 2. That's why we have a big divide in this country of doctors. We just heard a doctor speak. Other doctors, like America's Frontline Doctors, are totally against masks and these mandates. Okay, I'm not opposed to the virtual learning option. I'm not opposed to the cohort option. I think the virtual learning is a great option, although I suspect it would cost several millions of dollars. Number 2, masks. You've already mentioned that the governor's order restricts or makes that optional. But why try to impose on others? Do they impose on you? A lot of those that have probably come up to speak, I'm sure go out and eat at restaurants. All masked up, you walk through the restaurant, there's all COVID all the way to your table, but when you get to your table, you take your mask off. There's no COVID at the table. Is it COVID-free there? But I believe many of the mask-up protesters here tonight are here in good faith and are truth seekers, just like we freedom fighters are. I believe most are sincere. What is dividing us is the different sources of news, a divide in medical, political, and even science communities where the interpretation is different. Fact, no one knows the long-term impacts of the shots even, or the impact to our reproductive systems. We know it goes down to the reproductive system. No one. The masks, most people aren't even wearing N95 masks, but the virus is at a 0.06 micron and can penetrate an N95 0.3 micron fabric mask 50 times. www.sphosp.org. Not to mention the tremendous flip-flops by our government medical leaders and previously trusted organizations like the CDC. So my appeal tonight is, can we come together in person and try to resolve the true science about masks? And if we still disagree, can my team debate yours on the subject matter? Just saying that one cares for kids doesn't make it a grand provider, does it? We care for kids. And I don't believe it was God's original design, to separate noses and air. Kids shouldn't have to be forced to do something that they don't want to do. They should not have to be forced to ask permission to breathe free
30
air,
seconds.
period. Please don't impose on the kids. We care for ours too. Let's get together and try to understand this a little bit better. And we have local solutions. The AmericanFrontlineDoctors.org is local to us all. We couldn't be blessed more for the proper treatment for COVID and variant illnesses. Why do we want to be fear-mongered into these things? And the PCR test is already proven to have many false positives, I should say, since the testing was not done accurately or under proper protocols and will be discontinued.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Samina Kudos.
Two roads diverged in the wood, and I took the road less traveled by. It has made all the difference. My name is Samina Kudus. I'm the mother of 2 elementary-age children in the school district. I chose to open with an excerpt from a poem by Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken, because I believe it illustrates exactly the point that we're facing right now. This school district, this board in front of us, has a choice. You have to decide whether you want to go down the path that you're headed now, or if you want to take a bold leadership position and go down the path of safety that equips you with the safety tools and procedures you already know how to use. I'm excited to send my kids back to school face to face, but I am so deathly scared of what will happen. The Delta variant is raging through our community. It's attacking the unvaccinated, it's going after our kids, And you've already heard from people telling you the ICUs are already at capacity. We're expecting a peak in 2 weeks. What does that mean? Things are going to get way, way worse at a time when the hospitals can't accommodate our kids. Please, please don't ask parents to choose between educating their kids and saving the lives of their children. The CDC has provided us with so many guidelines. More important than that, this district, FBISD, this board sitting here today, knows how to do it. You got this, FBISD. You did it last year. You opened up school face-to-face for our children, and you kept them safe. And how did you do it? You did it by following best practices. You did it by following science, the CDC guidelines, the knowledge. You took advantage of the science and medicine that other people spent the time to research. You had people mask up. You socially distanced our kids. You reduced class sizes when possible. You encouraged hand sanitizing and cleanliness over and over again. You know how to do this. You don't have to recreate the wheels. You just have to boldly go down the path of safety. Our KP George County judge, right, he sent a
30 seconds.
message to Governor Abbott imploring him to open up the toolbox for him to save his community. Today, as parents, we stand before you, imploring and pleading for you to open up your toolbox that you have already used. Boldly go down the road not taken and save our children while educating them the best that you know how. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. That is the end of our audience responses. The board will now meet in closed session. We will now convene in closed session under Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, under the following section, Section 551.074, Personnel Matters. The time is 4:58, and we are now convened in closed session. Thank you. 8. And we are now reconvened in open session. Do I have a motion on closed session items?
Mr. President, I move the Board of Trustees appoint Pasha Goodman as the Director of Teacher Development.
I second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rice, a second by Ms. Day. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to ask that we vote. I understand that our little push pad is not working, so we will use our hands. So all in favor, please raise your hand. Oh, I didn't realize Kristen wasn't back. Okay, so Ms. Williams, I can't see you. I don't know if you're. Oh, I didn't see a hand. Ms. Williams, are you in favor or not? Okay. All those against? Okay, Ms. Williams, are you in favor or against? I could not see. I see you better now.
I didn't even hear. I'm sorry, I didn't even hear what you.
Oh, you know what?
asked me.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't even realize you were here. I did not realize, Ms. Williams. I'm anxious to get to our next meeting here, and so, Mr. Rice made a motion to approve Pasha Goodman for the position noted, and Ms. Day made a second. So our machine is out, so we're going to have to use hands. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, it looks like we are unanimous. The motion passes. Okay. Our next item on the agenda are action items. And our first item is to consider approval of a memorandum of understanding for juvenile justice alternative education program services.
Mr. President, I move to approve action item 6A1 as presented.
I second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rice on 6A1, second by Ms. Day. Do we have discussion? Okay, it seems like all our board members got their questions answered prior to the meeting, which is excellent. So we have a, let's vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, our next item is 6B1, consider approval of the student code of conduct for the 21-22 school year.
Mr. President, I move to approve action item 6B1 as presented.
I second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rice, a second by Ms. Day. Do we have discussion? Oh, actually, before that, let me turn that over to Ms. Saavedra before we discuss for some words here.
Right, I know we wanted to make a statement just to share with the public that we hear you. We know that we had several parents commenting this evening. Our student code of conduct does address the mask issue. We will, me as a superintendent, I'll be meeting with Region 4 superintendents tomorrow morning. All superintendents across the state will also be in a call with the commissioner at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, where we should get some more information and possibly some more guidance. In addition to that, we will be reviewing all of our data that we know that is coming out from the county, and we'll continue to apprise the board of this information so that we can determine whether any other decisions need to be made other than the ones that we've planned for to open school. So we plan to move forward with the student code of conduct as presented. You all have copies at your tables with the latest revisions as of this afternoon. So as you vote, you're voting on the document that is at your stations.
Thank you, Ms. Saavedra. Dr. Gilliam, you had a comment?
Yes, in light of what we just heard, or what we have on the very first page in the summary, where we have page 6, student dress code, all the way at the bottom. I'm looking at the summary. This packet here.
Oh, got it.
And all the way at the bottom where it has guidance from the CDC as well as local and state health agencies, recommends that people who are unvaccinated wear facial coverings. I'm wondering if that should be, this is added new language, should that be unvaccinated and vaccinated? Just a question in light of recent issues. And I'm not certain, Ms. Saavedra.
Ms. Martinez, would you like to respond to that, please?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, as of July the 28th, the CDC came up with some additional information about this, and so we would need to indicate that the CDC is asking for not only that, but also for fully vaccinated people, should they be exposed, even without symptoms, to test within 3 to 5 days. We could make that suggestion and add some clarity around that within our safety protocols as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So since you're actually quoting CDC guidelines, not Fort Bend ISD guidelines, whatever those guidelines are should probably be updated and amended. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And this is something that, thank you for your comments, Dr. Gilliam. This is something that, we can amend this, should changes need to be warranted in the future. So.
Yes, sir. And just to add, this came from a meeting yesterday with the county, and so we're staying abreast of the ever-changing situation, and we'll keep those lines of communication open regarding the documents and push out additional information to parents as it changes.
Okay.
I have one other on page 16. It has miscellaneous. I'm on the 3rd page of the edit sheet, where it has changed from using face coverings, and then it has changed to using any method to cheat. I'm wondering, can we use a different word? Can we use dishonesty? And what does that mean actually, cheat? It just seems...
Ms. Smith-Watson, would you like to come to the microphone, please, so that you can respond to questions associated with the student conduct? Ms. Sonia Smith-Watson is our Executive Director in Student Affairs, and she will entertain any questions from the board, along with Dr. Indelicato.
Dr. Osgam, I may recommend academic dishonesty. I think gives a little more clarity, if that's what you're looking for. I think
Yes.
that'll give a nice totality to what we're trying to address.
Yes, I agree.
Yes. Good evening, board. My name is Sonia Smith-Watson. Thank you for having me. I'm the Executive Director of Student Affairs, and I'm here to answer any additional questions. For Dr. Gilliam, that is what we were clarifying. It had face coverings, and now that academic dishonesty is more appropriate. We can make those revisions.
Thank you. Looking at item 20, it has regardless of location mandatory DAEP, looking at engages in conduct that contains the elements of harassment against an employee. I'm wondering, do we need a definition there? Or will that be something that all employees who would have to read this would understand what that is?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. That's a great question. In the glossary, we do define harassment, and that is specific to harassment of an employee. And that comes from the TEDS Appendix E, also the Texas Education Code and the Texas Penal Code. So we made a definition in the glossary that aligns with all three.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And my last item on the last page, 34, in reading the glossary, it has revised definition for discretionary, authority of responsibility to exercise discretion in making judgments and assigning disciplinary consequences in the best, should that be interest of the students in the district? It's just a,
Ma'am.
okay, great.
And we can revise that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gilliam. Ms. Williams.
Okay, my question is relating to the student dress code. how are we addressing that this year? Are we going with required uniforms for certain campuses? Are we still requiring uniforms for CTE? Clearly in the student code of conduct, it states that the parent decides to dress. So I need someone to explain to me, what are we doing?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be happy to answer that question. We did follow the process and with the help of the Department of School Leadership for the standardized dress inquiry. We did have only a small amount of schools that were interested in phase 2, but once we got to step 2 of the process, we did not have any campuses that indicated that they were interested in standardized dress. So we just made a standard guideline for all schools to follow as far as the dress code is related.
Okay, but I'm not hearing anything that I've asked. Again, are we requiring students to wear certain colors, be it standardized dress or regular dress code? Are we eliminating our standardized dress policy that has been in effect inside the district?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Williams, we do not have any campuses for this upcoming school year that will be in standardized dress.
Right,
Also,
let's go.
in regards to the CTE, as Ms. Wadasek had presented previously to the board, they have new procedures in place to where they will provide that for students.
They will provide what for students?
Any sort of required attire that aligns with their program they're studying.
Okay, so we need to have that in the dress code. If the board is going to vote on a dress code, it should, that's something that we are responsible for as a board. So if we're going to vote on having a required dress code for CTE, that should be specified, because what you're saying is that the parent decides the dress of the kid. And I'm not seeing anything as it relates to the physical education uniforms. Are the parents deciding what their child wears for physical education? Because we know in the past, they have been required to purchase PE uniforms from the school.
Parents have that flexibility. We will add that to the student code of conduct.
Okay, I'm missing what that is. Can you tell me what you're going to add? I'm missing what that is. Define that.
That is the PE uniforms and the CTE attire. We will add clarifying language to the student code of conduct.
Thank you.
Ms. Hannon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. I just have a few questions, and I do appreciate Dr. Gilliam's clarification on the vaccinated and unvaccinated component regarding masks. And Ms. Williams, thank you for the clarification that you brought up about CTE uniforms and PE uniforms. Mr. Rosenthal, can you clarify for me, we're voting on this code of conduct, but we could possibly be changing the information regarding masks based on information that Ms. Saavedra may get tomorrow at one of the 2 meetings that she'll be attending. Am I understanding this correctly?
So this document can be amended at any time.
Okay.
And so I don't think it's just dependent on those 2 meetings that you referenced. There was also discussion.
Okay.
I believe she spoke about some data and whatnot as well, so.
Okay, well, I look forward to hearing that information from her tomorrow. I do want to bring up, I had mentioned this earlier, requesting that we remove the language that discusses distracting hair color. I know that we, as a district, do not enforce students who, and I know that's subjective, of distracting hair color. Could someone help me understand why that language is remaining? And I'll just follow up with that. I really feel like in this day and age, the word cleavage does not need to be in our policy or our procedures, rather. And I actually looked at many policies today, and I would suggest something that's just something like no overly or excessively revealing shirts, tops, or blouses. I just don't see the language cleavage in.
Thank you, Ms. Hannon. We can make those adjustments as well.
So I think the administration is gathering these comments, and it sounds like I haven't heard any objections to any of the suggestions, so that I'm assuming that we can get some a little bit slightly different language on some of these things, and then bring it back at a later date.
Ms. Smith Watson, can you just specifically address the hair color piece as well? Because I know that we've agreed to amend the language associated with the cleavage. Did we amend the language already about the hair color, or is that still in there? I just
Did not amend the language regarding hair color. We amended the language regarding fitness wear, leggings and tights, and then also the overly low cleavage. So we can amend that language as well.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other discussion?
I just have one quick thing.
Ms.
I'm sorry,
Williams?
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'll be real quick. I'm just wondering if they could also look at the standardized dress to be optional. My opposition to uniforms was basically based on requiring parents to purchase a certain color. However, being involved in in some Title I communities, I hear now that clothing will be hard for some parents to afford for this upcoming school year. So I'm wondering, is standardized dress an option if the kid opted to wear uniform? Is it optional? Whereas the khaki pants and the blue shirt can be optional?
So a parent can choose if they want less selection for their child, which would in essence become standardized dress. That's a parental option they can choose to do on their own. In terms of campus-wide, we have policy which guides that, and it would, of course, come to the board.
Right, but okay. I got it.
Got it? Dr. Gilliam?
I got it.
And this is just, I'm looking at page 35. Hair shall be neat, clean, well-groomed, and worn in a style and color that is not distractive. That's just a question mark. It doesn't necessarily, maybe kind of circle it, and and that might be in the glossary too, as far as distractive.
Yes, ma'am.
Also, at the end, when miscellaneous, all garments must be sized appropriately. That's kind of a question mark to me. I'm just thinking judgmental, just kind of look at that. And I circled the cleavage thing too, so I'm glad that that's going to go, and or be looked at, I should say. And I want to let you all know this looks really good compared to what I've seen before. So thank you for the adjustments and the edits.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Gilliam.
Thank you.
Do we have any? Yes, go ahead.
I was just say thank you. So Student Affairs and Legal has worked hard on it, so thank you for that.
It looks really good. I thought I was going to, it's great.
Okay, Mrs. Malone?
Yeah, I too wanted to applaud you and thank you for updates. And teachers and principals have mentioned, as far as moving forward, that they need to know. And so I'm really grateful, and I'm sure they're going to be appreciative to be able to roll out and know how to proceed moving forward. So thank you so much for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Malone. Any other comments? Okay. We have a motion on the table to approve the student code of conduct as presented on our tables.
I motion to approve the student code of conduct as written.
I believe we have, I'm sorry, we have a motion on the table.
I'm sorry,
And so
I was so excited.
I understand. I started the meeting without two of our colleagues, so I get it. So it is time to vote. All those in favor of adopting, please raise your hands. Looks like we have a unanimous decision, 7-0. The motion passes. Thank you all for your comments. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. And now our last agenda item, action item for the evening, is item 6B2. Consider approval of an interlocal agreement between Fort Bend ISD, Fort Bend County, and the Fort Bend County Juvenile Board regarding the Saved by the Bell truancy program.
Mr. President, I move to approve action item 6B2 as presented.
I second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rice, a second by Mrs. Malone. Do we have discussion? Anyone? Angie? Ms. Williams? No? Okay, great. Thank you all for providing questions to the administration prior to our meeting, and thank you, Ms. Syvader, for answering all the questions. So we appreciate that. So if there are no further discussion, then let's vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Very good. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I motion to adjourn this meeting.
Okay, this meeting is now adjourned, and we will wait, actually, not very long for the next one to start. So let me grab that agenda. I just had that agenda. The current time is currently 6:07 p.m., and this meeting is hereby called to order. We have the presence of a quorum attending both in person and on a video conference. Notice of this meeting has been posted online and at the Fort Bend ISD Administration Building for at least 72 hours. Officer.
May I please have everyone's attention? Before the meeting began, we ask that everyone please silence your cell phones. The Fort Bend ISD Board of Trustee meeting is an open meeting for the public to observe the board conducting district business. Therefore, patrons may only address the board during the designated audience items section on the agenda. If you have printed material you want to give to the board members, you must provide them to me or one of the other officers, and we will provide it to the board. We also ask members of the audience be respectful of others by maintaining 3 feet of distance between each other and remaining quiet so that everyone is able to hear the proceedings. Face masks are optional. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. We have no audience responses for this meeting. Our first and only information item is board governance. We have with us Dr. Peter Flynn, Dr. Rick Berry from HYA, along with some of their associates online, to discuss the process of our upcoming candidate interviews and final stages of the Fort Bend ISD superintendent search. Yes. Dr. Berry? The mic, I don't think the mic's on.
Oh.
There we go.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
good.
you, President Rosenthal. Your HYA team is all in attendance tonight. It's the first time we've had the opportunity, at least 2 of us, to be with you in person, but our other 2 team members are on virtually and will participate in all aspects of the meeting. So it's good to be with you as we continue our work together on the select phase now of your superintendent search. We're going to try to make good use of your time. Some of this, it's not rocket science we're going to talk about tonight, but there are unique aspects related to this type of a process for interviewing and some of the other aspects of it. Some of it may go without saying. Many of you do interviewing in the work that you have done, and so you're familiar with how those processes work. Some of it may go without saying, but we're going to say it anyway because we want to make sure we're all on the same page. If I can do this, I'm going to move to the next slide. So this slide, we're talking about preparing for the interviews. And this first round of interviews, as you know, is going to be virtual. So we want you to think about that and make plans for how you're going to set things up so that everybody has clear, access and vision of each of the participants so that they have access to you and like you're doing tonight, and you'll have access to them. And if there are any glitches, we anticipate, as you do, I'm sure that your technical team will fix those very quickly. We'll ask you to review the applications as you're going to have access to those on the portal beginning this evening, and you can have those as you're processing the interviews and handling the interviews, but we would ask you after this evening to review those so you're better prepared for the interview process as you move forward. There's a lot of good information in there, and the applicants have worked hard at putting that all together to make it available to you. As we told you that we would do, we have done our due diligence and checked their references, both those they provided and some they didn't provide that we know and have found that know their work or have worked directly with them. And we feel confident we have, in fact, we feel really good about the slate that we will be visiting with you about tonight. Let's see on the next slide. Related to questions and answers, there are about 15 questions, and you'll have an hour and 45 minutes set aside for each interview with a 15-minute break between the interviews. You need to consider providing probably about 10 to 15 minutes of that time for the opening and introductions of you to the candidates and their brief introduction to you. And we think it's a really good idea to leave 10 or 15 minutes at the end for them to ask questions of you. We've said this to you before, but they're interviewing you as well. They've been checking you out. Many of them have watched you online in board meetings, if not all of them, probably all of them. And so it's really important if you're going to enter into this relationship that you have the team together and that they are as comfortable with you as you are with them. So you'll have, just a second. I think that covers just about everything related to the time. You have any questions related to time? We can ask questions at the end of our presentation, but if you have any as we go, feel free to bring those up. Okay, questions and answers related to the script. We're going to talk about the actual questions in the closed session tonight. And the actual draft you will get after we have reviewed that and you've approved the questions that you actually want to ask. So that draft will be prepared for you. You'll be talking about the use order of questions. We strongly recommend that you identify the most important questions so you can ask those first and then monitor your time. In fact, President Rosenthal, you probably will want to watch the timing to make sure you're moving forward and not allowing enough time to get through most of the questions. If you have the highest priority, most important questions first in case you run out of time to get to all of them, that works a lot better, that you can make sure you have the ones you think are most important done first. If you ask a hypothetical or a what-if question, that's good. You want to see how they think and how they respond to something like that. So you think about that. It's okay to also ask follow-up questions, but we do recommend strongly that you ask each applicant the same question so that you are comparing each of them fairly with each other, because your job, after you've met and interviewed all of them, is to see which one you think is the best for Fort Bend ISD. And one of the really important things you'll find in this is how you compare them with each other and ultimately come to a decision. I think that sums up my part. Let's see. I think Dr. Nola Wellman will be next.
Hi, I'm next on the agenda with a few things, and unfortunately, I start with the things you can't ask about. There are topics that you need to be careful. I know almost all of you, if not all of you, have been involved in interviews. This is not new information. However, it's important that we all are, again, as Rick said, are on the same page. It's very likely that the candidate may bring up some of these. They may actually allude to or even bring up directly some of these topics, but you have to also be careful in your response and not pursue those topics, even though they may have opened the door for them. And so this will be important. We'll bring it back to you. You'll have it in front of you, because these are the things that you just need to be careful about in asking or in the questioning process. The next is really kind of the art of interviewing. Of course, you want to listen to what is being said, the actual content, and how they're addressing the question. And are they addressing the question well? But the next part of it is really how it is said. Because as the superintendent, how they communicate is going to be a major component of their job responsibilities. And so you're evaluating not only what they say, but how they say it. In particular, we encourage you to look for their passion, for their real enthusiasm for the work. Is this something that they have a strong feelings about in terms of student learning? And is that something that you can determine in answering the question? The other thing is about thinking on their feet. How are they responding when it may be a question they weren't anticipating? Are they able to analyze, make steps? Do they feel caught off guard ever and stumble through an answer? So it's important that you think about how they're responding as well as what they're saying. The next one is about the sensing the whole applicant in their responses. Can you see them thinking through a solution, making steps to a problem, and able to communicate complex concepts in an easy to understand language? Do they problem solve well? Are they comfortable with questions that they may not be prepared for? And are they able to think on their feet and bring forward a thoughtful response to that? This is important for their future as a superintendent in all areas as they go out into the community. So you're evaluating that. Other things about their behavior, of course, eye contact, and that's hard on a Zoom conference because their camera may not be right there, but that is something to try to see if they're attempting to look at each and every one of you. Are they talking about we as a team? Are they talking about I did this, I did that? And then have they really researched Fort Bend ISD? They may not know every intricacy, but you should be able to tell that they've done studies of information that's online and studied for the interview. The last one that I have is really about fit. And this is a difficult one because you're looking for fit for Fort Bend. And that may not be the person that you feel the most comfortable with. We feel comfortable with people that look, talk, have same backgrounds as us. And what we're looking for, what you'll be looking for, is someone that will take Fort Bend for the next 5, 7, 10 years. And what does that fit mean to you versus someone that you may just feel more comfortable with? Are they able to share signs of developing positive relationships? Even in this short piece of time that you have together, you should be able to tell if they develop a rapport. Are they able to do that with, if not all of you, some of you in that short period of time? Can you tell how they respect people and their opinions and develop positive relationships in the community to a broad range of stakeholders? So this is a difficult one because we're often comfortable with the people that are like us. And so we're looking for really that match with the leadership profile for the future for Fort Bend. So thank you. And I think I'll pass it on to Lisa.
Hello, aloha everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of feedback and note taking, and that is, when you are interviewing folks, and a lot of this, I'm just kind of giving you some helpful reminders, but it's okay to give the candidate a little bit of feedback in order to steer that candidate, steer that interviewee, ensure that you are kind of getting the information that you need to make the best decision you can about whether or not you're going to want to see this candidate again. I guess I would say too, in that way, it's that, you don't want to waste their time or yours. So if they're answering the question in such a way where you feel like, okay, I can see how you would interpret that and that would be the answer, but I'm really wanting a little bit more depth here, you can help steer and nudge them up back a little bit. And it gives you some good feedback too if they are missing some of your cues in terms of that redirection. The other thing too, just to know as you're doing this, note taking can be a distraction. So I want you to know and remember that you don't have to take complete notes on every word that's being said. Collectively, the 7 of you will have a more complete picture of what that candidate's going to look like. It'll be much more effective than one person's taking constant notes on everything. And I think sometimes it's important, like if you're asking a question about a specific issue, to really, when you're taking notes, like what about their response really resonated with you or missed the mark? I think sometimes it's a little bit more effective in this kind of a setting when you're interviewing folks. The other thing too, just to know logistically, is that when we finalize the script, we're going to leave space for you to take notes under each one of the questions. Just giving you some of that information to know.
Excuse
so that
me,
you know
Lisa.
in advance.
Lisa, I'm sorry.
Yes.
It looks like we lost a couple of our colleagues online here. So could you give us a few minutes? Oh, they are on?
Sure.
Okay, I didn't. Okay, we lost the video, but they can hear? Okay, all right. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Just so that you know, you won't need to make additional preparation so that you're prepared to take notes. We've done a lot of that work for you. And you will have a script with spaces for comments for each interview that you will be conducting. Next, in terms of rating the applicants, it's going to be really challenging, but we're going to ask you to defer judgment and resist drawing conclusions about each person after the interview. There's going to be plenty of time to draw those conclusions. And once we get together as a group, your consultant team with this board, we are going to guide you through a very legal process that allows you to come together on which candidates really should be invited back for a second interview. And again, we will ensure that that is completely above board with Texas state law. So let's see. And in terms of what that debrief is going to look like, you have some guidance on the board portal in terms of how to think about the candidates. Individually, we would like for you to think about, how that individual, that candidate can perhaps lead the district to a higher level of excellence, how that person's really going to be working with the board, or do you see them as your 8th team member? The other thing too is that when we get together collectively, we're going to go around the room and you're each going to have an opportunity to talk about each candidate and really share and articulate what you see as their strengths, what some of their concerns or lingering questions. And this isn't necessarily a time to debate back and forth with one another as much as it is to really hear one another in terms of what your takeaways are for each of that candidate. This is, again, it's part of the process, and we are very cognizant of those state laws to make sure that you are not doing any official voting in that closed session when we're working on the candidates. So that next slide too, in terms of timeliness of moving from 6 to 3 candidates, we're going to do that on the day after you finish your last interview. We know that we will not be rushing this process. We are going to allow for full discussion, really to get to that final resolution of and I shouldn't have used that word resolution, but conclusion about who we're going to want to bring forward. At that point too, once you decide who you're going to want to see for a second interview, we're going to really want to work with staff and make sure that there's certain key documents that are accessible to your candidates that you're bringing back for a second interview. We have them listed here: audit, budget, strategic plan, organizational chart. There might be some other documents that you're wanting to have them look at. And this will allow them to become more intimately familiar with that information, and it'll show their preparation and their ability to really hit the ground running with Fort Bend. So I think, by the way, I see the slides moving around. I'm on slide 12, and I'm going to actually move it, pass the baton to Peter, who's going to take us forward on slide 13, which was just up on the screen.
Yeah, and actually, I'm going to, good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing us to come and present this matter that you've heard before and you know about before, and you've been very patient. Only have about 3 or 4 more slides to go, so then we can do a little more dialogue. The key here is, let's talk a little bit about the second round interview. First of all, in the second round interview, it's more than just an interview. There are some other events that happen in the second round interview. There's a luncheon with a couple of board members. There's a tour with a couple of board members. There's a dinner with all the board. So there are some opportunities to be casual and informal. But the reminder is that the rules still apply in that less formal setting. And here are the rules. You're going to say, well, we saw this slide before. Right. And the same rules apply, but it's easier to fall away from these rules in an informal situation than it is in a structured interview. And that's why we repeat this again. The same rules apply. If somebody brings up one of those topics, fine, you can listen respectfully, and you might even make a reflective comment, but not an inquiring comment. So you reflect by just repeating what they said, and if they care to expand on it, they will. If not, you move on to something else. So that's the nuance of the second round interview in the informal situation. There may be some questions from the first round that you didn't get to that you really think you ought to ask in the second round. We'll have time to prepare for that between the first and the second round interviews. And in addition to that, there might be some things that did come up during that first round that you'd like to pursue more deeply with an individual. Typically, there are some questions in common for the people that come back for the second round interview, but there might be some individualized questions as well. And so that's a little bit of a deviation from the first round, where we say, ask the same questions to everyone. So that being the case, it's okay to pursue some issues more deeply with one individual candidate, but not another. And then you'll look more closely at the style, all those things that are in that profile of desired characteristics. And you look more deeply at that, their competencies, their accomplishments, and so on. So that's the second round interview, and you've already seen this next slide, so I'll skip over that. Typically, following all those events that we talked about, so again, a luncheon, a tour, an interview, and a dinner, typically, board officers and usually the president and vice president, but it could be more than that depending upon how you structure it, meet each of the preferred applicant over coffee or breakfast, or maybe even the same evening that things finish up. And there'll be a little debrief with the candidate by the board officers, and that debrief essentially will be, do you have any other questions for us? Are you still interested in the job? And if so, let's talk some more about next steps. And that's what the second round interview was all about. The candidate will be prompted that this would be the agenda and come prepared to respond to those questions. But it's not a session to do a whole lot of negotiations or give and take. It's just to say what the individual is hoping will happen in terms of next steps, and for you to thank them and make note of what they've suggested. So that's our presentation. Those are the things we had to share with you. We're all going to be available. And pardon my back. Are they seeing my back or my face? I didn't answer that technology question here. But, well, pardon my face too. But anyway, we're ready to answer any questions that you might have or things you want us to talk more about. Or maybe some suggestions that you have from your experiences that you could add to what we suggested.
And just so everyone knows, we will be going into closed session after this to receive the slate of candidates, and we can also ask additional questions at that time as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I don't see questions, so
That's our half hour. Yeah, thanks.
the board will now convene in closed session. Let me grab my script here. The time is now 6:34, and the board will now convene in closed session. Let's see, under the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, under the following section, 551.071, for the purpose of a private consultation with the board's attorney or any other subjects or matters authorized by law, for the purpose of a private consultation with the board's, that's repeated, receive the slate of candidates, superintendent candidates from the district superintendent search firm, Hazard, Young, Ataya, and Associates. We're now in closed session.